March 19 introduces a subtle but refreshing shift in energy. After the grounded and serious tone of the previous day, where awareness may have focused on responsibility and reality, today brings a sense that change is possible again. The Sun forms a supportive connection with Uranus, and this influence often introduces moments of insight, flexibility, and unexpected perspective. Where Saturn encouraged structure, Uranus encourages movement. You may notice that something which felt fixed yesterday now appears more open to adjustment. A situation that seemed heavy or restrictive may begin to reveal alternative approaches. This does not necessarily mean everything changes immediately, but it creates a sense that you are not as limited as you may have thought. Psychologically, this can feel like a release. After a period of seriousness, the mind begins to loosen its grip. You may feel more open to new ideas, more willing to experiment, or more curious about possibilities that you had not previously considered. This influence often brings small but meaningful realizations. You might suddenly see a solution to a problem that felt difficult before. A new perspective may appear that shifts how you interpret a situation. Even a brief moment of insight can change how you approach something going forward. Uranus energy tends to arrive unexpectedly. The insight may not come through careful planning. It may appear suddenly, in a conversation, while reflecting quietly, or even while doing something unrelated. These moments often feel simple, but they can carry a sense of clarity that shifts your understanding quickly. At the same time, this influence encourages authenticity. You may feel more aware of where your current path aligns with your true self and where it does not. This awareness can inspire small changes that bring you closer to a more genuine expression of who you are. The key dynamic of today is openness. Instead of feeling confined by what you understood yesterday, you may begin to see how that understanding can evolve. Because once reality becomes clear, the next step is not always restriction. Sometimes it is the freedom to approach that reality in a new way. To understand the deeper psychology of March 19, we need to look at the role Uranus plays in contrast to what you experienced yesterday. Saturn brought awareness of limits, responsibility, and structure. Uranus operates in the opposite direction. It represents disruption, innovation, and the breaking of patterns that have become too rigid. When the Sun forms a supportive connection with Uranus, awareness meets change. The Sun reflects your conscious identity, the part of you that organizes your sense of self and direction. Uranus introduces new possibilities that challenge the way that identity has been structured. But because this is a harmonious connection rather than a tense one, the change tends to feel more like insight than disruption. Psychologically, Uranus works through sudden recognition. It does not build understanding slowly like Saturn. Instead, it creates moments where the mind sees something differently all at once. A pattern that felt fixed may suddenly appear flexible. A belief that seemed certain may open up to alternative interpretations. This is why Uranus is often associated with breakthroughs. The mind shifts out of repetition and into discovery. After a period where reality was clearly defined, Uranus introduces the realization that reality is not static. It can be approached differently. It can be reshaped through new perspectives and choices. Another important psychological effect of Uranus is detachment. This does not mean emotional distance in a negative sense. It means the ability to step back from a situation and observe it without being fully controlled by it. When you are less attached to a single outcome, you become more open to alternative solutions. This can feel liberating, especially after a day influenced by Saturn. You may notice that something which felt heavy or restrictive yesterday now feels more manageable, simply because you are looking at it from a different angle. Uranus also encourages authenticity. It pushes awareness toward what feels genuine rather than what feels expected. You may recognize where you have been following a pattern that no longer represents who you are becoming. This recognition can inspire small but meaningful changes. These changes do not need to be dramatic. Often Uranus works through subtle shifts in thinking that gradually alter behavior over time. The deeper lesson of this transit is flexibility within structure. Saturn showed you what is real. Uranus shows you that within that reality there is still room for change. When these two energies are integrated, you gain the ability to build something stable while still allowing it to evolve.
On a practical level, March 19 may feel lighter, even if your external circumstances have not changed very much. What shifts today is not necessarily the situation itself, but the way you relate to it. You might notice that your thoughts feel more flexible. Something that seemed fixed yesterday may now appear more adjustable. A problem that felt heavy may begin to feel like something you can work around rather than something that blocks you completely. This often shows up through small moments of insight. You may suddenly realize a different way to approach a task. A conversation might introduce an idea that changes your perspective. Even a casual observation may trigger a thought that shifts how you see a situation. These moments can feel quick, but their impact can last. Another pattern that may appear today is a desire to do something differently. You might feel less interested in repeating the same routine in the same way. This does not necessarily mean making dramatic changes. It could be as simple as adjusting how you approach a task, trying a new method, or responding differently in a conversation. Uranus energy thrives on variation. Even small changes can create a sense of movement and refresh your mental state. You may also notice that conversations feel more open or less emotionally heavy than they did in previous days. After a period where communication may have felt intense or repetitive, today allows for a different tone. People may be more willing to consider new perspectives or move past previous points of tension. At the same time, unexpected interactions may occur. Someone might say something surprising. A new idea may appear without warning. Plans might shift slightly. These changes are usually not disruptive in a negative way. More often, they simply introduce new possibilities. Emotionally, you may feel a bit more detached from situations that previously felt heavy. This detachment can be helpful. It allows you to observe rather than react. Instead of feeling stuck inside a situation, you may begin to see it from the outside, which naturally creates more options for how to respond. The key approach today is openness to change. You do not need to force anything. Simply notice where new ideas appear, where your perspective shifts, and where you feel drawn to approach something differently. Sometimes the smallest change in how you think about a situation is enough to change how it unfolds.
Now bring this shift in perspective into your own experience, sign by sign. Instead of prediction, notice where flexibility is trying to enter your life and how you respond to it. If you're an Aries, you may feel a sudden urge to break out of a pattern that has recently felt restrictive. Something that seemed like the only way forward may now reveal an alternative. The growth here is not just in acting differently, but in recognizing that you don't always have to respond in the same way you did before. When you allow yourself to pause and choose a new response, you begin rewriting your own patterns rather than repeating them. If you're a Taurus, this shift may happen more internally. A belief about stability, security, or what you should hold on to may begin to loosen. You might realize that something you thought was necessary is actually optional. Growth for you comes from allowing change without interpreting it as loss. Stability is not always about holding on. Sometimes it's about adapting in a way that still supports you. If you're a Gemini, your environment may bring this change through people. A conversation, a comment, or even an unexpected idea may shift your perspective quickly. The key for you is not to chase every new idea, but to notice which ones actually expand your understanding. Growth comes from discernment, not just curiosity. If you're a Cancer, this energy may influence your long-term direction. Something related to your goals or responsibilities may feel less rigid than it did yesterday. You might recognize that there is more than one way to reach the same outcome. Growth lies in allowing yourself to adjust your path without feeling like you are losing your sense of purpose. If you're a Leo, your perspective on something meaningful may begin to expand. A belief, expectation, or assumption may no longer feel as fixed as it once did. This can feel freeing, but also slightly disorienting. Growth comes from allowing your understanding to evolve without needing immediate certainty about what replaces it. If you're a Virgo, something that once felt complex may suddenly appear simpler. You might recognize that you have been approaching a situation in a way that made it more difficult than it needed to be. Growth lies in trusting simplicity when it appears. Not every problem requires a complex solution.
If you're a Libra, relationships may reflect this shift clearly. You might see someone differently or recognize a new way of interacting that feels more balanced. Growth comes from allowing relationships to evolve rather than trying to maintain harmony through old patterns that no longer work. If you're a Scorpio, daily routines or habits may feel ready for adjustment. You might notice where your energy is being used inefficiently or where a small change could improve your overall flow. Growth comes from being willing to experiment even in areas that usually feel controlled or structured. If you're a Sagittarius, this energy may feel like creative renewal. You might feel drawn to express yourself differently, try something new, or follow a spark of inspiration that doesn't have a clear outcome yet. Growth comes from trusting that not everything needs to be planned in advance to be meaningful. If you're a Capricorn, your foundations may feel more flexible than usual. Something in your personal or home environment may be approached differently. Growth lies in recognizing that strength does not come only from structure, but also from the ability to adapt when needed. If you're an Aquarius, communication may bring sudden clarity. A conversation could shift your understanding quickly, or you may find yourself expressing something in a way you hadn't considered before. Growth comes from allowing your thoughts to evolve rather than holding on to a fixed perspective. And if you're a Pisces, your values and priorities may feel like they are changing shape. Something you once placed importance on may feel less significant, while something else begins to stand out. Growth lies in trusting this shift without rushing to define it immediately. Your sense of alignment is evolving. As we close March 19, notice how perspective can change even when circumstances remain the same. Yesterday may have brought clarity about what is real, what is required, and what needs to be taken seriously. That kind of awareness can feel heavy at first because it asks you to face things as they are rather than as you wish them to be. Today introduces something equally important: the realization that even within reality, there is room for change. You may have noticed a small shift in how you see a situation. Perhaps something that felt fixed now feels adjustable. Perhaps a problem that seemed limiting now appears to have more than one solution. These changes may seem subtle, but they are powerful. Perspective shapes possibility. When your perspective changes, the range of choices available to you expands. You begin to see options that were always there but were not visible before. This is how growth often continues after clarity. First, you understand what is real. Then, you recognize how to work with that reality in a way that allows movement. Tonight, you might reflect quietly. What situation feels different to me today, even if nothing external has changed? What new idea or perspective opened up a possibility I hadn't considered before? And how can I allow flexibility to exist alongside the structure I am building? Growth is not only about discipline and responsibility. it is also about adaptability. When you combine both, you create something that is not only stable, but capable of evolving over time. And that balance is what allows progress to continue without feeling restricted.